Welcome back, Wisconsin, inside Wisconsin Sports with Trevor and Josh, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Time to check in with our guy on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. That's Andy Herman, the Pack a Day podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Usually we go, all right, Andy, we talked to you on Monday, then we're going to talk on Friday, and then we're going to talk on Monday again after a Packers game. But they play Monday. So what's new and what do we have? What have we learned this week, my friend?
Well, it's good to talk to you guys. I didn't get the Brewers memo today. My apologies. So next time, just shoot me a memo where the Brewers stuff with you guys. Not a ton new. What we learned this week so far, I would say, is just some of the injury stuff, right? Well, we learned they didn't make any trades at the trade deadline. We learned that they're interested in Asante Samuel, and we learned that Dontavian Wicks returned to practice. Some of the guys that got banged up, like Aaron Banks, are practicing this week, which is good. And then we learned that LVN, Savion Williams, and of course Nate Hobbs, which we knew about already, are not practicing, at least as of yet. So a couple takeaways, but almost had the feeling of like a very, very, very mini bye week with that extra day off in the middle, only one day of practice so far. And obviously gearing up for a massive, massive game with Philadelphia this week.
Andy, we played it in the 7:00 hour, but LaFleur said in his presser, we're going to have both kickers kicking today. And we're going to see how McManus feels and blah, 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 blah. What were your thoughts on that comment from Coach?
Well, it certainly opened the door because the day before it certainly made it seem like Brandon McManus was going to remain the kicker and be the guy. And then the next day it's, he said, it's open to competition and they're both going to kick. I think it was kind of two different questions. I think the first one is like, are you going to continue with McManus on the first press conference? And his answer was yes, like that's the plan. And then the next day it's like, what are these two competing? And he kind of gave his generic of like, well, there's always a competition anytime there's player, so I think their plan seems to still be McManus, but I do think that this opens the door a crack. And to some extent, when you're rostering a kicker on your 53 for the second kicker on your roster for, on the 53 for 3 or 4 weeks now. I mean, I would hope that there's some consideration to what you're doing. Otherwise, it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense for him to be on the active roster. So I'm sure they both did kick yesterday. He did seem to tip his hand the prior day on Wednesday it was, that McManus is their, I guess, preferred kicker. But if McManus is legitimately struggling with the injury and it's not healing and he's not kicking the way that they want, it does open that window. And I would hope that does remain the case, that it is a competition the way things have gone so far.
Josh and I had an aha moment this morning, and we realized that Jalen Hurts is our fault. We did not put 2 and 2 together that the last time the Packers beat the Eagles was December 6th, 2020. We were thumping them pretty good, 20-3, and Doug Peterson's like, Carson, you're done. Jalen, you're in. And that's when the fight started for the rest of the NFL. Did you realize that was against the Packers back in 2020, that Jalen Hurts essentially was good enough to become the starter?
Yeah, I didn't remember so did he become the starter the following week right after that?
Yeah.
December. So that I did not recognize. I remember his cameo appearance in that game and him looking good. And, obviously Carson had some struggles leading up until that point. So I remember that game very well. And I remember Jalen Hurts again coming in and doing a very admirable job coming in. I did not recall at all that it was the very next week that he just took the starting job at that point.
So with that, knowing they have a running quarterback and Saquon Barkley, stopping the run is a fairly important piece to this, and it seems to be something they're concentrating on at 1265. Yet, if you ask Keyshawn Nixon, hey, man, what are you going to do to help stop the run? I don't know. I'm a cornerback. Okay. What? How are we going to stop the run?
Well, yeah, there's a lot to worry about when it comes to Philly, right? So, and there's a lot of Achilles heels with Green Bay's defense that don't play well to this. I would say their run defense has been really good on the season, but in the first half against Pittsburgh, it looked very leaky until Pittsburgh kind of abandoned it in the second half. And part of that was Green Bay scoring points and whatnot. But Pittsburgh still kind of got away from it in the second half, sort of inexplicably. I think their injured left guard played a piece in that, not being able to go jumbo as much because their jumbo player went in at left guard for them. But that first half was very leaky against Pittsburgh. And then, of course, this past week against Carolina, the run defense was really bad. And that was basically how Carolina won the game. And now, Rico Dowdle is very good. You could see it last week, but, Saquon Barkley's a level up from that. And that Philly offensive line is a level up from where Carolina's offensive line is. So, I mean, the semi-good news there is that a lot of that did come with Colby Wooden out of the game. And, with him being hurt, does seem like he's going to be able to go. That will certainly help. I think they need to have 5 defensive tackles active. I said that before last game. They went with 4, then Colby gets hurt and you're down to 3, and none of them really being a true sort of nose, well, other than Stackhouse is an undrafted rookie free agent, none being that kind of nose tackle type. So I think they need to change that up a little bit. It was, Matt mentioned this as well, but it was uncharacteristic. Some of the stuff, just the edge setting the last couple of weeks, which they've usually been extremely good at for the last year and a half, was a little bit shaky. And then I thought their inside linebacker play, where usually those two have been really great, is Cooper and Quay, that is, at maybe not taking on blocks and shedding, but kind of avoiding those blocks from the 300-pound like offensive linemen and going and making the play. They struggled with that last week. So that was a bit of a one-off. We haven't really seen that so far this year. So I think there's things that they can do, but where the other Achilles heel is as well is they really struggle one-on-ones with wide receivers on the outside. And so if you end up having to commit that extra defender, that extra safety into the box, now it's A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith one-on-one on the outside with Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine in this game. And I don't think that's where you want to live either. And then, as you mentioned, you also have to worry about the running quarterback, which Green Bay's been better, knock on wood, against so far this year. Jaden Daniels, et cetera. They've not, been successful, but a lot of ways they've done that is by committing extra bodies and kind of keeping the quarterback entrapped. And again, you commit extra bodies and receivers are one-on-one on the outside a little bit more. And that's a scary proposition with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Andy, Matt was also asked a lot about the tush push in the presser yesterday, and not just about how to stop it, but also why did you stop using it? I thought that was interesting as well. Do you have any thoughts on not only how the Packers can try to be the team to stop it? Hopefully it doesn't play a huge part, but also why they went away from it themselves. I mean, we called it the love shove, I believe, but why that went away?
Yeah, I honestly, I guess I hadn't even really thought about it too much. And then the other one too is like now it's obviously gone, but the Tucker Kraft QB sneak has not been utilized either. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm not sure they haven't. I don't think they've had a lot of like 4th and inches sort of plays. And Josh Jacobs has been so good in those short yardage situations, especially in the red zone, that it's almost difficult not to give the ball to Josh Jacobs right now because he's finding those creases and getting in the end zone almost no matter what. I don't know if it's something that Elton's not comfortable with at center. Maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure. But that is an interesting aspect that I hadn't thought of all that much. And yeah, they probably are going to need it at some point. As far as Philly goes, listen, as a fan of the NFL, I'm a Packers fan first, but as a fan of the NFL, I would beyond love if Nick Sirianni received the ball the first play of the game, just tush push. First play, it would harken back to the Hack-a-Shack by Greg Popovich when he was criticized for doing Hack-a-Shack, and on the very first play of the game, the other, I forget what team Shaq was on at the time, but they win the tip off, and Popovich goes and has 2 guys just immediately hack Shaq on the right after the first tip, and Shaq looks over at Popovich, and Popovich just goes ha, like it was fantastic. So I would love the troll by the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, and if there's any coach that would do it, it might be Nick Sirianni. If they got the ball in on the very first play, just went tush push because of the Packers stuff, it would be very hilarious.
Wow.
God, if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be so pissed.
Oh, there's no
that in my head.
There's no way that happens.
There's probably
on
not,
the first play? No. God, maybe
good.
First drive. Like, I'm sure we'll see it, but not on 1st and 10.
We got to get to him somehow. That's got to happen. Oh, that'd be so good. The NFL would be so pissed, and it would be so good if they did that. That'd be amazing,
especially on national TV, Monday Night Football. Like,
right.
Again, if there's if you do it, I mean, you need to extend that drive. You can't go 3 and out, and you probably like winning the game would need to be the thing too. That like we ran the tush push on you the first play, national TV, and then we went and won the game. You also risk the like. Are the Packers going to get more fired up and ticked off because you do that? Are they going to play harder, etc.? Yeah, but it would still be the ultimate.
You just
troll.
listed all the reasons why it won't happen, which
I totally agree. No, hilarious. I don't expect it to happen. It would just be hilarious if it did happen.
Oh man,
Andy Herman at Andy Herman NFL on Twitter. The Pack a Day Podcast 365 every single day. God, I don't know how I'm going to get that out of my head now. Thanks a lot, Andy. Like I really want that. But is it? Let's just say hypothetically they do that, and you guys are right. That would really energize the Packers. Does that make them line up right on offense, or does that help them be more consistent on offense? Because Jordan was asked about that yesterday in the locker room, and he said the attention is in the details. So how do we get everybody to be on the same page and pay attention to the details on offense?
Yeah, that's coaching. They've got to figure that out. It was one of the first things that I noted in my film review. I wrapped it up yesterday, put the episode up, and as you guys know, watch every player on every play. And what really stood out to me, we talk all about the play calling, which again, I thought was one of Matt's worst performances of his career this past week. But you really could see some of the route running and attention to detail that I thought was just completely lacking on offense. There were some routes that, I mean, guys, it almost looked like guys were just going through the motion or they were running the route for the very first time. I thought Malik Heath really struggled with trying to get any sort of separation. So it's some of this gets, just put generically on play calling. I thought the execution was very bad. And again, that's not absolving some of the play calls, which were really bad in this game. In fact, it's sort of the interesting thing is a lot of people upset with the play calls and the quick bubble screens and things like that, which some of them, the third down one was brutal. But I actually thought that Matt got a little over aggressive, even on tilt a little times, and just tried to hit some of those plays down the field. Jordan did too. Jordan was a piece of that, but Matt had a couple play calls in there where it's just like, they're playing soft zone coverage. Why are there'd be basically like a 2-man route, and there's like 6 defenders that were just clouding the entire. It's like there's nowhere to go on that type of play. So, but then on other plays, there was just some really poor execution as well. I talked about route running, but just to give a few examples. So, the Savion Williams fumble is an example of like, what the heck, another bubble screen. It's not a bubble screen. Well, ish. So it's a run solution. It's a called run play where if they are stacking the box and you've got defenders off your receivers, you throw the quick, run solution to the outside, basically saying like, if Romeo makes his block, we're going to get more yardage, maybe 3, 4, 5 yards on that little bubble than we are going to on running the ball into a stack box. So it's a totally normal NFL play call. And in that situation, Jordan made the right read. It's good to go to the receiver in that situation. Romeo blows the block, and then Savion runs right into Romeo, and then Savion compounds it by fumbling. Not great execution on that play. There's a play, or very first passing play of the game, where Jordan ends up checking it down to Josh Jacobs, and almost looks like it's going to be picked, and then Jacobs attacks the ball and cuts inside and makes 2 people miss. Luke Musgrave is coming wide open through the middle of the field and up to the right side, probably a 40-yard play that's right there. It looks like Jordan's looking right at it. Maybe he's just looking at Tucker and doesn't see Luke, but it is wide the heck open, and Jordan just doesn't see it. There's another play where Romeo comes open in the end zone for a touch, what I would call NFL open. It's not tight, but you're going to have to make a good throw on it. But he's open in the end zone for a touchdown, and he sees a kind of a in-swinging player coming inside and looks like it's going to get pressure, but the offensive line actually picks it up well, and he abandons the pocket because he thinks that guy is going to get through and does a rollout to the right and has to dirt the ball. If he just stays in the pocket or if he gets out of the pocket and just resets rather than continuing to roll out, he's going to hit Romeo for a touchdown, and instead it ends up being an incomplete play. So some of the route running, the decision making, it's not just play calling. There's plenty of that as well to complain about. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of the execution on some of the plays that were called well was very much lacking as well.
Andy, I know obviously it's Pack a Day podcast, not Brew a Day podcast, but you are a huge Brewers fan, and I need to know your opinion as well, as we've asked throughout the show and earlier for sure in the 6 o'clock hour. Brandon Woodruff. They're gonna offer to pay him $22 million to come back for a year. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had to do some reading up on this yesterday because I was surprised / semi-confused at first. Yeah. So it definitely took me back. But a couple of things that I think were smart after I read about it a little bit more. Obviously, this covers you if he signs somewhere else, that you are going to get a competitive balance draft pick, a sandwich pick, whatever you want to call it, in between either the first and second, or second and third round, depending on how much he signs for. So I think protecting yourself there makes sense. And then the other thing that is probably smart to remember here too, if he does accept it and you end up paying him $22 million, if I remember correctly, the $22 million. It doesn't mean that you can't trade him. It doesn't mean that he has to stay on your roster for 1 year, $22 million. And I think probably some team, maybe if it's not now, even at the trade deadline, potentially would be interested in trading for him, which at that point you're eating half the salary. So what you're basically taking insurance out on is that you're going to get nothing in return for Brandon Woodruff if he leaves in free agency and you have nothing to show for it. And I think one of those two things is likely to happen. Or it sometimes these things too, I could be wrong in baseball. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even if he signs the 1 year 22, I don't think that precludes him from signing a longer term deal as well. So that could be a more of a negotiating tactic as well. So I would be, in a way, a little bit stunned if he ends up on a 1 year 22, which I know is kind of 32 because of the money they took, the buyout already. But I would be a little bit stunned. But I do think it's a way to either recoup something if he does end up, not accepting it and leaving in free agency, or if they just utilize him to trade to one of the rich teams. That 22 million is just like, what is 22 million? Whereas to the Brewers, that's a big deal. So we'll see, but that would be my guess.
I like that answer.
What don't you know? That's impressive.
I have one. I don't know. I don't know why I don't get to enjoy football in Madison until at least 2027. That's what I don't know. I have no.
There you go.
And I don't know. Again, I'm not generally the guy that is rah. Let's fire everyone. I want this guy to lose his job. This is a pretty simple one. It feels like a pretty simple one, and I know that there's a lot of money attached. To which makes it not simple. But my goodness. Hire Steve from accounting instead. Like that's already on staff. Like, there's got to be somebody there that knows some football that can just take over. That is a remarkable decision, and one that I know I will be. I'm not a huge college football guy, but I do enjoy the Badgers when they're good, and I'm not expecting that for a long while now. So yeah, there we go.
They're not. Andy Herman, the Pack a Day podcast, and joins us every Monday and Friday here on Inside Wisconsin Sports with Trevor and Josh on the guest hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. All right, Andy, we're done. But the question is, when are we going to talk to you next? So we can chat Monday. However, they play Monday night. And last time you got zero sleep, you showed up on this thing in a football helmet, and you didn't know which way was up. So Can we talk with you on Tuesday next week? Does that work for you?
Tuesday is potentially great. I think we can probably make that work. We might need to go a little bit early depending on a couple things, but we can probably make that work.
You tell us and we'll make it work. So we'll follow up with you on Tuesday. We'll dot the I's and cross the T's on the time, but that way we get your reaction to Monday Night Football, Packers, Eagles. We appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Andy.
I'm also very glad that I didn't, right after, joining us next, Luke Fickell here on the, okay. All right. Sorry about that. Well, you guys have a great weekend.
Oh, love it. Thanks, bud.
Andy Herman at Andy Herman NFL, the Pack a Day podcast.